VocalEye Almost Live Zoom, Lossy, hosted by Amy Amantea, with special guests Lisa Mariko Gelley and Andrea Cownden.
Everybody, welcome to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Associate Director here at VocalEye. I am your host for these almost live events, and I am a proud member of the blind community. I enjoy my Wednesday nights with you always. I enjoy our pre-show chit-chats every week, and I just want to say a big thank you for joining me in the space as you do on Wednesday evenings. You've been supporters of this space and of VocalEye in person for those of you who live in Vancouver here since the beginning of this. And I just want to thank you and tell you how much I appreciate you all in this space, for testimonials, for donations, for all of the things that you bring week after week yourselves in this space, and just the friendships that we've made here. I remember in some of the conversations that we've had, people talking about how they're going to travel to certain spaces and who can we visit when we're in those spaces. And I myself have been able to travel to Ottawa and meet people in Ottawa who've been to these spaces that I had never met before. So it's really, really exciting for me to be able to connect with folks, and I want to be able to visit everybody in every space. So it's on my bucket list to visit y'all. If you happen to be watching on our YouTube channel, you can connect with us, of course, in many ways. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can hit like and subscribe on our YouTube page. You can also make donations through our newsletter. You can check out our Describers Cafe. There's lots of things that you can do to support VocalEye. So please help us share this platform with others and help this work of accessible art sharing for people who are blind and low vision keep going, because we need a space where we can access each other and access art accessibly. So VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and unceded territories. So those are stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples, and that's the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations in particular. So I've been thinking a lot about climate change, as maybe we all have, as we notice or listen to on the news, things like snow falling in places that don't typically get snow. Vancouver has gotten a dump of snow in the last couple of weeks or so that we typically don't get so much snow, but every once in a while we get a large dump of it. Rain that falls in cities that don't get a lot of rain. I think I heard a lot about an enormous amount of sunshine and snow melting in Alaska not so long ago. Forest fires. We've got all sorts of things happening on this planet that are counterintuitive to what we've experienced decades earlier. And it keeps changing and changing and changing. And so thinking about what we can do as individual people to support, reverse, prevent climate change from continuing to worsen. So save our planet, one person at a time. And I think we know a lot of these things. So like green up your commute. Probably not a lot of us in the blind community are just jumping on a bicycle and, picking up our groceries that way. But I'm sure a lot of us are doing walking, especially if we have guide dogs, taking public transit, those kinds of things. So shared rides, that's a good thing. But certainly walking is good for our health if we have the ability to do that, and are good for our dogs. Eating less meat, of course, keeps greenhouse gases down. So even if you reduce your meat by 1 meal a week, that can be helpful for the planet. Planting trees, if you have a garden and you want to plant your own plants or plant your own trees, or join an organization that goes out and plants trees, that's lovely. Using less plastic. So what are you buying in your grocery stores? Are you using paper bags or those cloth bags? Even when I, buy grapes, and I think to myself, ooh, do I need that plastic bag to put the grapes in? So now I have those plastic bags, but I reuse them and wash them every week until they're about to fall apart. So I try and get as many uses out of them as possible. It's really hard to avoid plastics, friends, but I'm doing the best that I can. And also they have organizations that will meet on a weekly basis if you want to be a part of them, and like walk along seawalls or in parks and pick up plastics that are just like strewn on the ground. So that's something that folks can do. Vote like your planet deserves it. So that's something that we can do here as Canadians, as we have elections coming up not too long from now. So vote like your planet deserves it. compost your foods. We can all compost our compostable foods. And this is one that I really, really loved, and one we don't talk about enough, which is support women and educate girls. And they say empowering women, and when they have the say in things like the size of their families and their livelihoods, when they play a part in these key roles in addressing those types of things, it has an impact on climate change. And supporting and mentoring programs for women, especially women in developing countries. They participate in these kinds of initiatives and the microeconomics that help women start small businesses and sustainable businesses in their communities. And that all really goes towards supporting climate change and reversing or sustaining climate change. And I thought that's something that I don't do and not something that we talk about enough. So I will leave that to marinate in your minds today on Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025, as we offer in tonight's guest on our Almost Live event number 172. Let that sit for a moment. 172. This is Company 605, and we got a couple special guests in the space with us this evening. So tonight, I want to welcome in Lisa and Andrea. There we go. We got Lisa, we got Andrea, we got myself. Welcome, friends. How are we this evening?
Doing well, thank you, Amy.
That's Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Andrea, how are you this evening?
Hey, Amy. Good to be here. I'm doing great.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to have you both here. Maybe let's just start from the beginning, because this is the first time we've had Lisa and Company 605 in the space. Lisa, do you want to give us a little bit of background about who you are, what the company's all about?
Sure. My name is Lisa Mariko Gelley, one of the co-directors of Company 605, along with Josh Martin. And we started as a collective, actually, when we were kind of younger emerging artists back in 2009. And collective sort of slowly transformed into more of a company that we are today. We make works for stage and film, sometimes site-specific. We do some co-producing of events around Vancouver, like Hold On, Let Go. And yeah, we're here doing contemporary dance in all sorts of ways.
That's great. So both you and Josh are also dancers, right? You would introduce yourselves as co-directors, but you're also dancers.
That's true. We are dancers and choreographers, and we actually are both dancing in the work that we're experiencing tonight, Lossy. So yeah.
Awesome. Andrea, how did you get involved in Lossy?
Well, I'm also a dancer first before I got into working in various intersections of arts and accessibility. And so I knew Josh and Lisa because they were teachers and choreographers that I engaged with when I was in dance school when I first moved to Vancouver. And they heard about me doing this work, and a previous project, Future Futures, was being described because it was going up on CBC Gem. They knew I'd had some experience with dance description at that time during the pandemic. And yeah, we just tried it and worked together, and it was really fun and exciting to, yeah, because I know them, I know their work, and I've embodied it. I've been to their workshops and their classes. I think it was exciting. I don't want to speak to them, put words in your mouth, Lisa, but it's interesting to experiment with the idea of a describer who has a bit more insight into what it's like to dance and move in the way that the dancers and movers are moving. So that's I think why they asked me. And I was happy to be there.
I would always advocate for somebody describing dance who is primarily a dancer, because it just makes sense to me that, you know, dancers understand what they're looking at, the movements. They have that sort of innate, I don't know, that innate sense in their bodies of what their contemporaries are doing on the stage. that maybe somebody who doesn't have that perspective can't maybe put into words or pull out perspectives of. So that really delights me when I know that a describer who's also a dancer is doing the description of a dance piece. So this is wonderful. So the title of this piece is Lossy. What does that mean? Where did that title come from? It's a word I've never heard before.
Lossy, I think like the kind of technical definition of lossy is about data compression. So like there's a lossless type of compression where everything is preserved in a maybe very simplified explanation. Lossless, like everything that came in the version, say before, would be carried forward. And lossy, on the other hand, is something that sort of loses information as it iterates. And the sort of like short version of the backstory of this work and how we came to Lossy kind of as an appropriate title was that we started making the work or doing research way back in 2019, and then everyone knows what happened in 2020. We all went through the pandemic together, and a lot changed for us as humans and makers of live art and all of that. And we went through some also personal losses, and it felt like the work that we were making was never going to actually be able to be made in the way that we had initially thought it could be possible in 2019. And so really the process addressed where we were at, which, you know, involved loss, grief, questions about the future and what that even would look like. So our original premise for the work, while it sort of was, we kept honoring it, we also had to acknowledge what we were currently going through in order to make it possible. So Lossy as the data compression kind of title makes sense in many ways about our iterations slowly filtering out what was necessary and what wasn't anymore. And then also it does sound like the word loss a bit. So we were hoping that it could kind of give a little bit of an inside edge on the fact that even though the work is bright and shiny and can look fun at times, it's also about something more.
It gives a lot of really interesting context before you go into experiencing this work, because it sets this up really well for me, understanding the background of that piece. That's really awesome, Lisa, for sharing that. Andrea, I think you have some like pre-introductory notes, but before you read those, I wonder if there's anything else we need to know before we set up this piece and experience it together from either of you.
I just wanted to say a little bit of context that I was invited in, not in the 2019 version, but like into rehearsals as well. I got to work with rehearsal videos, live rehearsals, conversations with Josh and Lisa. I'm friends with lots of the dancers. I got to watch it live in theater, watch the lighting change, and then work on a live version description. And then this description that we're hearing tonight is laying over a video, of course.
Yep.
And I just wanted to let people know that sometimes as a describer, I just work from a finished video, and the description is all about what's being framed for me as a viewer of a video. But this description, I modified it a little bit to suit the video nature, but I also tried to leave as much as I could intact from my memory of being a viewer in a theater, which is a different experience for me because there's more agency. Like instead of the camera deciding when to zoom in and out, it's my attention that zooms in and out. And so I just wanted to say that this description might sit somewhere a little bit unusual between a live description and a kind of description of a video or movie work. So, and I think I hope that works for folks. I'm interested if you can feel that difference.
This is part of a creative access experiment. Yeah.
But it's special that I got to be part of process as well. Because sometimes it's just, here's a thing, can you describe it? And so I just wanted to put that from the describer's perspective.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, most describers don't get that much time and access to material to be able to really sink their teeth into it. So that's very cool. Okay, so I say we invite Andrea to share pre-show introduction notes, and then we'll hit play on the dance. And this is a feature-length dance, so it's about 50 minutes or so. And then we can come back and ask any questions or share any thoughts with Andrea and Lisa about Lossy. So, Andrea, I'm going to give you like the center square. You know, if this was Hollywood Squares, you would be the center square. So you can share your pre-show introduction, and then we'll play Lossy. Sound good?
Thank you,
Awesome.
Amy.
All right, I'm going to disappear. Lisa, we'll see you after the show.
Welcome to Lossy by Company 605. Before we start the show, I'll explain a few key terms that I'll be using throughout the description, give a few notes about set and lighting design, and introduce the dancers. Key terms. In this description, I borrow some of the language that Josh and Lisa used to talk about their work, namely their terms lossy and the stream. When I say lossy, which is the name of the piece, I'll be referring to a specific state of uncertainty and directionlessness that the dancers embody throughout various parts of the dance. That's lossy. When I say the stream, I'll be referring to an endless stream of interrupted dances that intentionally overstimulates and disorients both audience members and dancers alike. Many of the fragments of dances in the stream feel familiar, like references to things that already exist. And because there are so many different fragments, inevitably, different ones are recognizable to different people depending on their cultural backgrounds and familiarity with dance. Some audience members may recognize many dances, whereas others may not recognize them as references at all. A few dances from the stream that I recognize are the Running Man, which is a 1980s street dance move that looks like stylized running on the spot. Flossing, a dance move that went viral in 2014, where the hips swing back and forth between two stiff parallel arms. The dance from Beyonce's Single Ladies music video, which came out in 2008, where dancers point to their own hand while they flip it forwards and back. And the mashed potato, a 1960s dance where the dancers' arms take turns swinging up loosely over their heads. Notes on set and lighting. The set for this piece consists of a living room, which is located in the back left quadrant of the stage. The furniture in the living room almost always stays in this back corner, but the rug that the furniture rests on does move to different parts of the stage as the show develops. The only other set is two huge pieces of crumpled up white plastic that sit along the back wall. The lighting features futuristic halogen tubes that both hang over the stage, line its front edge, and stand up independently. These 5 standing tubes, each about waist height, are mobile and help delineate the living room. In this description, I'll focus on the overall effect of the lighting rather than tracking its changes in detail. And finally, some information on the dancers. Lossy is performed by 7 dancers. I'll introduce them each momentarily and call them by their names during the description. But please know that it's not important to keep track of who's who or what they look like in order to enjoy and understand the dance. The dancers in Lossy are Lisa Mariko Gelley, a mixed-race Japanese-European woman entering middle age, Josh Martin, a white man of about the same age, Shanna Wolf, a young mixed-race Japanese-European woman, Kate Franklin, a white woman in her 40s, Ruby Henderson, a white woman in her early 20s, Jade Chong, a young Chinese-Korean-Canadian woman, and Antonio Somera, a Filipino-Canadian man in his early 30s. Thank you so much for listening to my pre-show notes, and enjoy the show.
Futuristic text appears over footage of a very dark stage. Company 605, Lossy. The text glitches, then swirls away like being sucked into a vortex. Ice-cold light flickers on over a stark, empty living room. No walls surround it. Rather, it floats alone, its pale area rug, an island in a dark sea. The furniture in the living room is plastic, futuristic, transparent, iridescent. Behind it, barely visible, a huge crumpled up sheet of white plastic adds to the sense of desolation and alienation. Lisa drifts into the darkness, her body a shadow, sunglasses shielding her eyes. Stopping in her tracks, she confronts the living room, soaking in its eerie coldness. She turns to face the audience, a somber acknowledgement that we're here with her, then walks to the edge of the rug. Her steps are slow, her arms hang limp by her sides. Josh enters in a similar daze. They acknowledge his arrival with a weighty glance. Each gives the other lots of space, and with soft steps, they cross the threshold into the living room. It's as though they've been to this place before, but they've never until now seen it so empty. Their outfits are strange, with garish, iridescent accents that match the plastic furniture but seem at odds with the heavy mood. Josh wears a tiny hooded vest. Lisa has on shiny chaps. Josh sits on a stark, pearl-colored bench. His hands are tense, gripping its edge. Lisa comes next to him, hesitating, before sitting stiffly. She slips off her sunglasses, rests her wrists on her knees. Their bodies are quiet. Their faces are lost in other worlds. Eyes averted, staring at the carpet, Josh places his hand on Lisa's thigh. Tentatively, Lisa rests her head on Josh's shoulder. A glimmer of intimacy, an attempt at comfort, but no relief. One by one, figures accumulate in the living room. Shanna first, her energy carefully tuned to neither disturb nor disrupt the atmosphere, which is heavy with stillness and unfinished looks. Then Kate, who barges in, stops. Something bad has happened, and no one knows how to be. They call this state Lossy. It's uncomfortable, uncertain, understated. Next comes Ruby, who Kate stares at from beneath the rim of a wide visor before slipping off her strangely long athletic coat. Then is Jade, who holds still for a long time on the edge of the scene. All wear multi-layered outfits with bright colors and bizarre details. A wave of royal blue chiffon stuck to the back of a neon orange vest. Futuristic knee pads dotted with reflective yellow. A windbreaker with an electric green hood that seems to glow translucent under the light. As the living room slowly fills with bodies unable to find the right gesture or posture, attention is drawn to the furniture that they try, unsuccessfully, to get comfortable on. Lisa sinks into an inflatable, transparent armchair in one corner. Across from her, Josh hovers next to the tall back of a hard, clear plastic chair. Between them, an iridescent coffee table glints occasionally with pale pinks and soft blues. And the whole scene is hemmed in by the rectangular area rug that Kate sits on, the weight of her slumping shoulders propped up by her hands. Antonio enters last. He meets Ruby's serious eyes, his expression stone cold despite the fact that he wears hybrid spectacles with one shade on and the other flipped up garishly. Kate's spine straightens. Lisa stands. Antonio finds his place at the back of the room. It's tense and getting tenser. The group seems to sense themselves as a whole for the first time, but still they can't connect. No one knows what they want or what to do. Each is stationed, sitting or standing, hypersensitive in their own impenetrable bubble around the perimeter of the rug. The air in the room gets denser. Their bodies stiffen to a statuesque stillness. The space between them grows taut. Beginning so subtly that it's almost imperceptible, they begin to rock. A pulsing, tight frequency. Their bodies still somehow appear to be frozen solid. It's inhuman, like some kind of tiny glitch. They pulse in unison so that the room itself seems to be rocking, destabilized. It's uncanny. One at a time, they begin to add tiny mechanical lurches into the slowly growing baseline rock. These lurches snap them into slightly new positions, a step forward here, an arm reaching towards a piece of furniture there. As they continue to pulse in unison, the focus between them becomes razor sharp. Little by little, the rocking becomes bigger, more forceful. In tiny increments, propelled by the force of this growing rock, the rug begins to actually move. Each pulse of the group inches the rug, and all of them on it, forwards along the ground. They are riding it, surfing it, scooching it, into the dark unknown. Keeping their rocking dance in meticulous unison, they continue to propel the rug forward, while simultaneously working together with robotic movements to transfer the furniture off the rug, leaving it and the living room it represents behind in their wake. With the rug clear of furniture, it's hopeful. Whereas before they were stuck, listless in the living room, now they have momentum, direction. Still rocking, they build a tableau with their bodies. It's a ship. Jade beams out from the crow's nest, Lisa peers through a telescope, and Ruby leans off the prow. But as soon as it's built, the tableau fades. Faces fall, and the rug starts to recede, as if being sucked, inch by inch, back towards the vortex that is the living room. As the group continues to pulse along together, Ruby gets left behind, sitting alone in the corner of the rug, her posture defeated, face zoned out. She's lost in Lossy. Eventually, determination and excitement reignite in her eyes, and she is pulled back into the persistent rhythm of the side-to-side rocking dance. Inching forwards once more, the dancers' bodies begin to loosen, their hips swing and their faces brighten. What was once a rigid pulsing now creeps towards the vitality of partiers seeking release at the club. The rhythm, once relentless and even, shifts and relaxes. Boom, cha, 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 boom, cha, cha, cha. And their dance sinks into this rhythm. From this baseline, dancers burst into individual moments of more energetic self-expression, shining brightly, hands flung overhead before falling back into the pleasure and relief of the unison groove. The group still on the rug arrives in the front corner of the stage. Spatially, they are as far as possible from the living room, but emotionally, the feeling still seems to haunt them. Here and there, a dancer falls out of rhythm into the dazed state of Lossy that defined the beginning of the piece. But after missing only a few beats, they snap back into time with the others, smiling like they were never gone. The pull of the dance gets stronger, the moves more defined. Grooving in place around the rug, the dancers exchange gleeful looks, enjoying the pleasure of recognizable moves like flossing. With bold, rhythmic strides, they break off the rug, fully succumbing to the power of what has become a non-stop litany of playful dances, changing abruptly and incessantly from one groove to another. It's as though just before they settle into one style of dance, a switch flips and they're teleported into another. In this way, they are never able to really relax or enjoy or even be themselves. Instead, their faces express the requisite mood of each snippet of dance, flipping between euphoric, seductive, stoic, or silly, with an eerily mechanical choreographic precision. It's like turning the tuning dial on a radio, hearing lots of hits, each with a different mood, but never arriving at a feeling of satisfaction. They call this relentless flow of moves the stream. Here's a sense of it. They're skipping backwards like carefree kids. There's a kickball change sequence that looks straight out of a 90s hip-hop music video. There's sharp diagonal arms like jazz dancers on Broadway. Then they crumble to the ground, contemporary dancers trained to be able to inflate and deflate their bodies on cue. As though one deflation goes too far, suddenly they are all dropped out of the dance, caught in a moment of Lossy together. Then snap, back to wide grins and peppy Congo line arms, followed by a warping between neutral and horrified faces that moves forwards and back like a horror movie caught between play and rewind in the exact moment of discovering the monster. Suddenly free of that anguish, they stutter forward with a series of freeze frames from a world that looks cartoonish, carefree, fun. It's disorienting and overwhelming. Each move a fleeting image, a manufactured emotion, a taste of a memory, and by the time anyone has a chance to register it, let alone connect with it, they're already 3 moves ahead. Meanwhile, in the back of the pack, Shanna slips into Lossy, drifts to the living room to take off her vest, then seamlessly joins back with the group as they shuffle sideways, head cocked to one side like Shirley Temple. This move turns into a glimpse of I'm a Little Teapot before changing again, hands joining in a big circle, the group cresting together like they're dancing around a maypole. They scurry forward, hunched in a wriggling pack, fingers cutting through the air like fish through water. On and on, move after move, they are trapped in this stream. Like the endless scroll of unsatisfying distraction served up on a smartphone, it's both addictive and numbing. waving lighters in the air like they're at a concert, becomes old-school hip-hop Jack-in-the-Box, becomes an exuberant loping along that sweeps them across the stage in a current that washes them up amidst the furniture of the living room. Energy drains from their bodies towards the lossy state, their attempts at rest disrupted by tiny pulses of movement, like the involuntary twitches of a body on its way towards sleep. Until the switch flips again and they are propelled out of the living room, chugging forwards with pumping fists, then snap to the moment after a joke, then snap back to the endless dancing like nothing ever happened, undulating blissfully, seaweed caught by the same wave. Switch, a boxing drill. Switch, a whipping lunge like starting a lawnmower. Switch, melty, twisting floor work. Switch, a flash of Macarena, then drop. All of them are out of it, in Lossy, but before they can come to their senses, they regather as if drawn by magnets and are off again, scurrying along the ground, then snapping to their knees, scuttling sideways, looking up with caricatures of sad faces as they shake tiny fists in the air, like a parody of a desperate prayer. Back on their feet, they gather tightly, hips swaying in a flirtatious two-step, eyes cast seductively at no one. Of course, this too doesn't last forever. As the stream pulses on, Kate drops out. Arms dangle by her sides as she looks at the oblivious dancers that surround her. She's trying to make sense of where she is, where she's been, to reconcile this emptiness with the overstimulation that envelops her. She joins back into the group as they launch into a series of ecstatic jumps, springing into explosive shapes like kids on a trampoline. Suddenly, they're a group of 20-somethings, bouncing coolly at a nightclub. Their dancing bodies stiffen, their eyes glaze over. Like avatars in a video game, they wave hello with weightless, strangely angled arms before being pulled into a snippet of a cheery tap dance. Then it's back to the eeriness of the video game. The group loiters in mechanical unison as they watch Jade perform a too fast, too smiley hip wiggle with a plastic grin plastered over her face. This unsettling image gives way to brighter, looser dances, each one on its own, perhaps, a joyful release, but stacked back to back to back, they all become something that feels darker. Antonio drops out and wanders towards the living room, where he finds Lisa taking off her garish scarf. As the group twirls and trudges on, he removes his spectacles and hands them to her to tuck away neatly on a side table. Antonio is swept back into the group, and Lisa sinks into the inflatable armchair and the feeling of wobbly support it represents. Even as the music loses rhythm, the group surges on. They land in a surreal scene, acting out a panic and fast forward as Antonio, stiff like the video game version of himself, walks calmly away. Lisa joins back in, and suddenly they're all bopping along jauntily into yet more moves, as though plugged into some different reality. Josh wanders to the living room, and Kate sees him, caught momentarily in a gap between dances. A fleeting moment of sharp recognition as they do a 2-second excerpt from Beyoncé's Single Ladies music video. This pop culture reference rolls seamlessly into a warping barrage of poses from every boy band photo shoot ever, all rolled into one. They skip off doing a pony step, then snap into a body roll, all a strange mashup of memories of dances they've seen or tried or learned or taught or performed. They snap into a line and dive one at a time like a row of synchronized swimmers. It's surprising and delightful and dark and entertaining and monotonous all at once. Jade walks through the crowd of them like she's in a dream, as around her, the rest react with slick, oversized yet graceful gestures of concern, like a moment from a dance by Ballet BC. The switch flips and it's back to rocking and grooving, loose and jovial like old friends. Meanwhile, the lights around them glow like a neon arcade, a place designed to keep its players hooked. It all adds to this sense of sinister overstimulation. Ruby is left behind as the rest gallop away, swinging imaginary lassos over their heads, then collapsing into the ennui of the living room. On her own, Ruby cuts sharply between different movements from the stream and Lossy. The group picks back up, but this time Ruby does not reintegrate. As she remains stuck in her own experience, the group instantaneously reforms into the shape of the ship, Lisa peering through the telescope again, but this time Ruby is not at the prow. Instead, she keeps dancing on her own as the ship image glitches into fragments and melts away. With haunted, stoic faces, the dancers migrate back to the suffocating shelter of the living room. Meanwhile, Ruby's body convulses as she does the funky chicken with so much gusto, a wide smile spread convincingly across her face. As the dancers pass by Ruby, they see her, disconnected in her own world of dissociation, but no one is able to reach out and penetrate. There's a desperation made visible in watching Ruby in the stream by herself. It's as if a part of her hopes that by doing all this dancing, she'll be able to avoid the discomfort of Lossy, the discomfort of the living room, and the discomfort of facing whatever memories might live there. But at last, she succumbs and joins the rest, adrift and at odds, moving awkwardly around the small room. She is met by uncertain looks and Antonio's tentative hand outstretched towards her shoulder in a half-baked attempt to soothe. Everyone exchanging looks of grim not knowing as they retreat with the slow, uneven steps of Lossy to their own spots around the perimeter of the room. Stillness overtakes them again. Moving so minimally it's hard to detect, the room begins to shift. This time though, things don't pulse, they stretch. Ever so slowly, a jaw slackens and begins to slide to one side. A shoulder glides down the slope of a back. The tip of an ear cranes up towards the ceiling. Like chewing gum, their bodies appear to be slowly pulled apart until the image of them in the living room distorts completely. Their bodies under extreme tension, sticky limbs contorting towards multiple directions at once. They're moving as though their bodies don't belong to them. They're losing their relationship to time and space. They're stuck somewhere in between. As if puppeted by the same external force, they suddenly revert to their original rigid forms, but just as suddenly each slips right back into the slow motion pulling apart. Lisa, in the inflatable armchair, which now seems somewhat less inflated, manages to recline to the point of being almost totally lying down. From this place of bodily distortion almost beyond recognition, bits of groove creep back into their bodies in small, awkward, and unexpected ways. A heaving, pulsing chest, the trace of a beat stomped by a heel as the rest of the figure wrenches stiffly, fused into one piece. Each dancer now follows their own trajectory as they begin to move more, as though rediscovering their connection to body and music, and at the same time abandoning any sense of order or orientation. All semblance of unison is lost. Kate and Lisa spill out over the floor, while Antonio arches backwards over the pearly bench. The grooving in Josh's tense body glitches and wobbles. The furniture has been upended. They are falling into a syrupy chaos. The dancers ooze beyond the boundaries of the living room. They all laugh as if possessed by a collective flashback. And for Jade and Ruby, this snaps them back into the stream, their peppy moves quickly spreading to infect Shanna and Josh, while Antonio slowly rearranges tubes of light, and Kate pushes herself across the floor on her back, slipping underneath the edge of the rug. In the stream, the dancers do the locomotion. Behind them, in another world, Lisa seems to time warp as she moves beams of light through the disorderly remnants of the living room. The dancers in the stream boogie on. It's surreal. In this second iteration of the stream, everything feels a little more off. The group fractures into more pieces, falling in and out of sync with each other in complex and unexpected rhythms and configurations. As one trio warps between over-exaggerated poses, another trio momentarily becomes DJs spinning vinyl at a packed party. Kate, having emerged from under the carpet, remains on her own, hinging backwards with absurd control until she folds into the ground like a collapsible stroller. Meanwhile, Shanna and Antonio do a fragment of a dance routine from the sitcom Friends. Others join them as they pump their fists, shimmy sideways, and then snap into an elongated, sensual sway. Like before around the imaginary maypole, they join hands in a circle and rush together, arms cresting over their heads. This time, though, as the stream flows on, Lisa remains stuck in the peak of the moment, hands suspended above her head, savoring the memory of when they were together, how their hands felt in hers. Remaining in this daze, Lisa dances slowly towards the rug with stretched and spiraling limbs. Behind her, the group slowly condenses, their grooves just as energetic but now becoming smaller, more contained. A two-step here, a jumping fist pump there. At last, they're all back together, dancing on the rug as they were when the stream began, flinging their arms up to the sky as they do the Running Man over and over and over and over. They turn to face each other in a euphoric circle. Josh stays stuck in the motion as his peers allow themselves to sink into a simple back and forth pulsing step. Their determination is palpable even as they face the back. Each footfall, an insistent commitment to the dance and their togetherness. Josh, dropping into Lossy, surrendering to exhaustion, reflection, grief, sits in the center of their synchronized, stepping bodies. As if those bodies were one with the music itself, they continue their simple pulsing. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Josh comes to his feet and joins them, tentative at first, then feeling the pull of the collective, allowing surrender to overcome him. As one, deepening their commitment to the simple pulse, they slowly scan around the corner until glimpses of their faces are visible. All artifice dropped. Their true exhaustion is evident, and yet they pick up steam. Hands reach out towards shoulders for comfort, solidarity, encouragement, and the moments of connection sustain them. They're facing squarely forward, allowing their bodies to give in fully to this moment, sometimes jumping because they simply cannot be contained. All of their will and resolve pours into this simple, pulsing dance. Allowing the dance to grow wilder, they throw their weight from foot to foot, and now the rug is moving again, inching along with thrilling jolts. The momentum in their bodies is infectious. As they ride the rug to the center of the stage, bodies in the audience are pulled to move with them in rhythmic sympathy, willing them onward, cheering silently for them to attain the catharsis, the change they so desperately seek. Working as one, the dancers make the rug spin, the side-to-side movement now giving way to any devoted expression of shared pulse. They are their own party, seeking release, striving for pleasure. Above them, the halogen tubes of light pulse too, flashing with saturated color. Their bodies loosen but maintain the intensity, spilling off the edges of the rug, pulsing around Josh, the force of his rhythmic dancing causing the rug to spin and slide all on its own. Each in their own moment of thrashing dance, it's messy and rough. Josh jumps onto the rug, sliding it along the slick surface of the stage, almost falling. They're tired, they're running, they're playing, they're trying, they're jumping. Sweaty, spent, and yet they keep going, collecting into a group, jumping in unison, hands over their heads, pleading faces turned upwards, searching for the transcendence that only dance and sweat and togetherness can give. Then the dam of energy that was holding them in this jump cracks, and they are dropped into a new kind of dance. Their intensity now channeled into a tight unison where they throw their bodies around, grab their heads in their hands, thrash their arms with urgency and frustration. The quick, rough sequence repeats itself again and again, as if they are trying to expel something, shake themselves out of the cycle they were caught in. brows knit in determination. There's so much will in the repetition. Like maybe if they do this enough, something will happen. Little by little, things start to fall apart. The group fractures, one dancer at a time getting stuck in a different moment of this sequence, trapped in a little loop that repeats and degrades. Movements and rhythms clash, create dissonance. Light drains from the scene. At the front of the pack, Shanna is illuminated only by icy flashes, her frantic dancing breaking down the constraints of the choreography, but remaining just as vigorous. Behind her, in the dark, the other dancers are a swarm of thwarted impulses as Shanna dances with rough, halting movements, fervor mixed with frustration, mixed with hope. Little by little, she manages to calm herself into a kind of stunned stupor, and the dancers behind her do too. Shanna's hands drop to her knees sink to the floor. Around her, the group is dissolving, seeing each other as though through a dense fog they stagger and scatter, swirl and float, occasionally crossing paths. A fleeting hand clasps Shanna's shoulder. Kate glitches off balance, and Josh surges, then spins like a wobbling top. The hair of Lisa's ponytail slips through Antonio's fingers. Shanna, who's back on her feet and gliding in a haze through the swirl of bodies, sinks backwards in a slow fall, supported by Lisa's hands and Ruby's outstretched arm. For a moment, the rest of the dancers coalesce around her laid-down body, united by a sense of concern and reverence. Shanna gets up quietly, looking around as though to reorient to a new reality. Lisa lies down, sinking into contemplation, occupying the exact place where Shanna had laid. The current of the dance carries on and carries them away from each other. It's as though the ties that kept them tethered have been cut, and now they're out floating in the vastness of space and memory. Jade flings herself to the floor but lands softly, spinning on her knees. She swings her head around her body with smooth, indulgent abandon. Across the group, bursts of other lush movements like that one mix with more everyday actions, moving furniture around, making it impossible to know where to look or how to track all of what each dancer is experiencing. Kate tips back in the hard plastic chair, limbs hovering, suspended in a fall through time, while Lisa climbs onto a rug as Josh lifts it up by its edge. He pulls it along so that she slides, motionless yet surfing sideways, off-kilter and dreamlike. In the living room, Antonio works tenderly to rearrange furniture. He rests the table against the chair, which is balanced on the bench. All around this act of quiet care, the others drift. It's a spacious collage of pleasure and impulse and dance and grief, all woven together by the threads of remembering. Shanna dances a memory of her frantic solo, a rapid cascade of interrupted gestures. And the rug, now a lump on the floor with someone crawling beneath it, creeps slowly forward. A recollection of the subtle back and forth pulse seems to emerge from nowhere, and the rhythm gently echoes in each body across the stage until they are all together, suspended once more. The moment breaks, and they return to disorienting disorder. Kate and Lisa now carefully building something from the furniture in the living room. Antonio and Jade come together, one behind the other. They rock side to side in staggered time so that their forms become a single blurred image. Meanwhile, the lump of carpet creeps closer and finally emerges from the floor, rising upwards and wrapping itself around Jade's shoulders, which too have risen to an impossible height. The carpet drapes, becoming an incredible cape. This carpet queen, larger than life, now towers over the stage and glides away, mysterious and unapproachable. The dancers freeze in their tracks to watch her go. Like everything else, this magic moment fades into the past. Ruby pulls the rug along the floor to align it neatly with the growing, careful stack of furniture. The last fragments of dance crest and fall across the stage. Low to the ground, Kate swings her body around one arm, winding up, unwinding, then winding up again to turn off balance. Jade lurches backwards. Ruby sways. Stark flashes of white light seem to lay everything bare. As the dancers arrive one by one in a stillness inflected with relief, they settle their attention on the new arrangement of furniture that has formed in the living room. It begins to glow. Now it is an altar, built with care and symmetry from the literal pieces of the living room. It's not only a reconfiguration, but a transformation from the mundane, disjointed, haunted, towards the intentional, structured, sacred. Lisa stands in front of this monument, grounded back to the audience, with something in her arms. The other dancers see her and, sensing that she's okay, leave one by one. Jade, Kate, Antonio, Shanna, Ruby, until only Josh remains with Lisa. His attention goes first to the altar, then tunes to her as he oscillates on the rug behind her, beginning to dance. Tiny, flickering movements that seem to come from deep within. As Lisa turns around slowly, what she carries in her arms is revealed. A multifaceted bundle of iridescent plastic that glows with light from within like a magic crystal. She cradles it with love like a baby, and so it becomes one. Josh and Lisa balance each other. He dances around her with a million impulses, each contained so that he stays close in her orbit as she walks away from the fading altar. Her glowing treasure that she holds in her arms is now the only light in the world. Her body is an anchor of solemn devotion as Josh flits around her in the dark. His shadow a mosaic of movements, ever shifting in texture, tone, and timing. It's beautiful, the dance of a racing mind. He overflows with care. Lisa, encircled by Josh's perpetual motion, comes to stillness. She lets herself be seen, open, imperfect, committed. She holds the bundle of light, the baby, in her arms with unflinching, endless love. They are together. There is light in the darkness, and this feels like hope. Josh's dance finally settles, and he and Lisa turn to face a cloud of faintly glowing pink that emerges from across the pitch-black stage. It's a huge raft made of the crumpled sheets of white plastic that glides forward, a surreal combination of a float in a space-age parade and a Baroque painting of the swirling heavens. On board, dimly lit, the dancers entangle with each other and all the furniture from the living room like debris washed up on a cosmic shore. They move in silky slow motion through an infinite carousel of snapshots that draw from the full range of human experience, flowing freely between past and present and future. Josh and Lisa have quietly joined into this dance, Lisa having carefully integrated her precious bundle into this raft that holds everything. Now arrived front and center, the shape-shifting tangle of dancers on board the raft continues to unfold in a slow cascade of genuine feeling. Basking on the beach, yelling out across a far distance. Carefully pouring the last of your favorite perfume into a tiny bottle. Holding in a tantalizing secret. Smelling a ripe peach. Reaching out, watching a vase fall from a shelf the moment before it hits the floor. Fragments of the ship reappear, spotting land for the first time after months at sea. Anguish. Reuniting with an old friend. Watching someone you love leave. Cheering at your kids' soccer game. Bliss. Their bodies melt together in a fading pool of memory. The stage goes black. The dancers take their bow, standing proudly on the raft. They bow again as the audience comes to their feet. Text appears. Company 605. Lossy.
All right, friends, welcome back. That was Company 605, Lossy. Of course, you just heard Andrea say that final description. Let's welcome back in Andrea and Lisa to the space. I think we have an extra human. Lisa, who have you got in your square with you?
I'm now joined by my 8-year-old kid, Loa, who was at swimming lessons with Josh, the co-director of Company 605. Also happens to be my partner in life.
Very nice.
They're back now.
Very nice. Lola, are you a dancer as well? Yeah,
Loa,
shaking your head.
Loa's
Yes.
nodding. I said, Loa, no talking when we get back on Zoom. So she's being very obedient.
I love it. Okay, this was an interesting piece. I had the privilege of being able to see this in person, which was really electrifying in the room. I have to ask right off the top because I, in the moment, was also baffled by this moment. And how did you move the carpet? So Andrea describes this moment where you are all on the carpet, and I imagine it kind of like the scene from Aladdin where the carpet flies, but you're all on this carpet and you're moving your bodies and the carpet is moving under you. And I'm thinking, how are you moving the carpet by standing on it? What's the magic behind that?
Well, I think it was kind of a playful discovery. We had some objects in the room in the process in the studio, and sometimes when you're in that grief mode or just in that creation mode in general, you just turn to play. And through that, I think Josh discovered that he could move the carpet singularly with his movements, and by shoving it, kind of just transferring his weight from side to side. And we had previously done a little bit of a scene where we were all wobbling our bodies side to side together without the carpet move involved at all. That was sort of in our older research. So we tried to put that scene on top of the carpet and figure out if we could do that same weight shift with our wobble that Josh had discovered on his own. And it turns out we could if we all sort of shifted our weight together, stayed in unison, and used the rhythm of the music really to make sure that we were all driving to the same beat. And it's actually harder to make the carpet move as a group compared to as an individual, but it's certainly possible.
It's quite, from the little bit that I could make out of it visually, it like my imagination takes over, and it's quite stunning. Like I've had the privilege of sight in my life until the age of 24, so I know what that would look like. And I can just imagine the audience being like, oh, no way. Like they're making the carpet move. Like, does it have wheels on it? Is there ice under it? Is it there? Like, how are they doing this? So that must have been kind of just a moment of magic to be able to do that, just from a visual perspective. That's really, really very cool.
Yeah, we wanted it to come out as a surprise too, like even to us, even though we knew where it was going ultimately, we wanted it to be like this result of our body's movement. And interestingly, somebody who watched the show came up to me later and said, hey, when I was a kid, I used to move the carpet with my brother. We used to get on our family ride. That was so cool to hear that. Like that was something that was discovered by other people and shared as a memory. So yeah, it was
Yeah. Cool. Gee, now I'm thinking I missed out on my childhood on some really cool, cool things.
Never too late to try to shove a carpet.
That's right. My brother would harm me deeply if he knew that I shared this story, but I used to dress him up in a tutu. I digress. So I have some kind of dance in my in my childhood, but he would come after me if he knew I said that out loud. where did the idea for all of these like fluorescent lights and this like giant, I don't know, mess of plastic come from?
We kind of had, as I had mentioned in the pre-show, that we'd started working on this a piece in 2019, that being Lossy. And back then, we wanted to make like a sci-fi dance piece, more simply about future and the loss of our bodies, digital migration. And so kind of the tropey sci-fi elements that we came up with were things like, yeah, like plastic, cold, hard objects, the fluorescent lighting. So that was kind of a part of the original world. And then when we brought in these kind of extra layers or content, it felt like that needed to stay and that we could be in that world as a container, but that within the world we would be having this sometimes contrasting experience of like hopelessness or not being able to see the future. And so there was definitely, I feel like it helped to create that tension between something bright, shiny, you know, something that we were all looking forward to going towards, and then the ultimate sort of failure or questioning of it within the work.
That's very cool. I just want to remind our guests in the space that you also have an opportunity here to ask questions of Lisa or Andrea, share comments. We don't get the opportunity to have a lot of dance described in the space. So if you have anything you want to share about either the description or have questions about dance in general, please use this space to ask questions or share comments as well. And I will look for hands. If I miss them, I got Andrea here that can see hands, and otherwise we'll just continue to have a little bit of oh, now we have a hand. So keep talking. It's Ben. Come on in, Ben.
So I have actually got a two. I got a two for, and I'm going to ask this to. Is it Andrea?
Andrea's the describer.
Andrea, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm the describer, Andrea. I'm excited for your question.
So, how did you? Well, so there's two parts of it. How did you get to hear about this? And part B, how did Lisa? Lisa? Did I get that wrong?
That's right.
How did you both get connected? is that question. And what's the company name again?
Okay, so the company is Company 605, that Lisa and Josh co-direct, and this is Andrew speaking. I know them from the dance community because I'm a dancer as well. So they were my teachers, and when I was in dance school, they choreographed a piece that I was a part of that was wonderful, and that's how we know each other. And then through the dance community in Vancouver is pretty small, so through the community, they learned that I was starting to work in creative access and reached out. And does that answer the questions?
I actually I have a side note to that question, or a side question. Lisa, does your younger is it daughter, I believe?
Yep.
Does she dance as well? And does she get to be with you when you put these projects together?
Yeah.
And I was gonna just to make it cool, I think we should have her answer this question.
I think you should let her mother decide that, Ben.
Yeah, I would just add to the part 1A and B of your question and just say that last year, Josh and I went through a process of reflection and consultation with Veronique West, who's an artist and works in access and disability justice here in Vancouver. And we were thinking about ways to use creative access in this work. And so we did a lot of reflecting and listening to different descriptions of dance works or contemporary type works and tried to sort of find a bit of a path to experiment on. And through that process, we engaged Andrea. As Andrea mentioned, we had some previous experiencing of her description work through kind of dance films and through another project that we did, dance for like a film series. And we thought, well, I think part of this exploration does involve potentially like a deeper relationship of Andrea learning about the work as we make it. So we did bring in Andrea a few times through the process, which kind of gave us a bit of a cheater thing where we could act, where Andrea knew what we were going for in addition to experiencing it herself. And so it was kind of an interesting sort of like idealistic maybe way to approach what we were doing, because contemporary dance can be quite like abstract and hard to grasp for all of us when we experience work. And this gave us an opportunity also for Andrea to sort of have like a bit more information about what we were trying to do and how to convey that to audience. So it's been very great, and we're very thankful to Andrea for having this exchange and trying to figure out how we can offer the description as creative access in our work. So that's been really great. And as for the questions about Loa, Loa's definitely been involved in the lifestyle of contemporary dance since she was born, or maybe even before she was born. She was on tour with us when I was pregnant, and then she went on her first tour when she was 4 months old to Australia. And she came on tour with us everywhere we went for the first 3 years of her life. And now, what do you want to say what you do for a performance right now, Loa, about the panto? She's nodding her head no, but what I'll share is Loa really likes to, I think because she had experience early in her life just being around professional artists, going on tour, being backstage, being in the audience, I think she's really drawn to that whole kind of experience and has been doing the East Van Panto by Theatre Replacement for the last few years, which is a play, would you say, a kind of a play, a panto style play. So it's like usually takes a very classical story and it sort of like remixes it and puts it into relationship with the local area. So she's been performing in the panto with professional theater artists and musicians for the past 3 years, which is kind of her way into performance, I would say.
We know the panto well in this space. We've been able to see some of the videos, but also it's audio described for us live by Stacey Stedman, who also has some of her kiddos performing and dancing in this space. So Loa, were you in this most recent one, which was the Robin Hood one? Did you dance in that one? Yeah? And how was that experience for you? Did you enjoy that?
She's saying yes.
Very nice. I'm glad you had a good time. One of my good friends, Haley, was in that. She was the sugar glider.
I was a big fan of Haley too, aren't you?
It was a great show. It's a great show. Wonderful. Well, I wish you, Loa, all the success in your acting or dancing or performing career. That sounds lovely. We have a hand from Megan, so let's see what Megan has to say.
Yes. Well, I have two questions. Lisa, Andrea, how on earth did you do the words? Like, you did so amazing. Like how you did it. I should do some of them. I'm like, okay. Like when you said go faster and faster, I started going faster, like really, like I visualized me doing it, like me doing it, and I'm like, whoa, okay, not remember too much. And then the second one was, have you ever done, Lisa, have you and Loa and Josh ever done? Well, I'm sorry. Have Loa ever done a panto on your tour, like Australia or something like that?
Okay, I can take the first question. I'm so glad that like the dancing kind of came through and entered your body. I try to sometimes when I'm describing or even like when I'm performing the speaking of the describing, my body's really moving and I'm trying to like put it in my body and then try to get the words to come out. So it's really nice to hear that it made your body activate because that's the challenge with dance. Like they are dancing so much. And I don't want to overwhelm the listener with all the moves, but at the same time they're there. Those dancers are working a lot. So I'm glad it comes through. And I was blessed with a lot of time to just keep trying stuff and changing it and trying stuff and feedback from Amy. And yeah, so that's my answer. I'm really glad to hear that feedback.
And who made the music? It was really eerie, but wow, you could feel, I could feel I was in the, in time and space, like, whoo, like time and space, like, okay, that's different. Like, oh, mirroring time and space, that would be quite lossy for me. Yeah.
Good question. Was that custom music?
Yeah, we work with a sound designer named Matthew Tompkinson. Matthew's been working with the company for several projects and made this beautiful Lossy track. It's actually one long continuous track that he ended up assembling. And through the process, talking with Andrea too about the work and the experience of the work, it's also, I think we could all just probably listen to the music as an experience.
Yeah.
There's so much depth to it, and Matthew also comes into the room a lot compared to some other kind of sound designers or composers we work with, dedicates a lot of time to being in the space with us, hearing the conversation, contributing to the conversation. So the work that he does is like such a gift to us. It's so beautiful and rich and such a pleasure to dance to.
Thanks for your questions, Megan. I know that you said you started like an iteration of this in 2019, but if you had to add up all the time that it took to build this final piece, how long would you say that actually took?
It's probably too embarrassing to say out loud. Like ballpark, at least 30 weeks.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Josh? Over 5 years. More than your average dance piece, let's say. A lot of the time you get like 6 weeks.
Well, that's why I asked the question. And, even when people talk about, independent artists or small artist collectives putting a show together, I think sometimes folks don't recognize that, you do a workshop for a couple of weeks and then you step away for a while and then you come back and then you step away for a while and you build a thing and, and then you rehearse it and you do it and you keep tweaking it. It's different than when you have a play that's already put together and you hire actors and you give them a thing and you rehearse for 3 weeks and you put it on a stage, right, for a run of 16 or 20 shows or whatever. So the building process takes time. And when people say it took 4 years to put the show together, that doesn't mean you worked on it every, 5 days a week for 4 years. But you can tell how much effort and love has gone into this work. And I imagine that all of your works are approached with the same amount of love and effort. And when you build a piece like this, are you bringing all of the artists together in a collective to, I believe you are, because you already talked about this world of play, but is that how you build these pieces? Is you set folks down and you say, this is the theme, let's start playing, let's start working what's in your bodies. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process?
Sure. Yeah, typically we like to work with a collaborative model, which means now that we're a company, that Josh and I are the directors, so we'll often bring the proposal, bring the ideas, sort of coordinate the whole thing, and we invite dancers into the space as dancers and as collaborators. So we might give certain prompts or ask certain questions, talk about what we're interested in, and then there's a whole bunch of generating of material that comes from their bodies, from our different and shared experiences. And for this process in particular, just because it was really spread over 5 years, I think kind of how it started was we had groups of people come in and then work together on lots of material that never ended up making it into the work, but it was all part of the development phase. And then over those pandemic years, it was a lot more individuals kind of one or two at a time coming into a space. And so it was very spread over many different processes. And like you said, Amy, not like we actually worked on the piece straight for 5 years, but little pockets here and there of different combinations of dancers, and then eventually kind of coming out the other side and gathering again together as a larger group. Some changed from who were there in the beginning. New people came into the group, and then yeah, we kept working, coming together in the studio with a larger group and trying out our ideas, and always really trying to value what each dancer wants to bring in their own bodies and their own experiences. And then yeah, like it's definitely Josh and I hold the responsibility of putting together everything, but we really value everyone sharing, you know, how they see the work making sense to them. And especially in this process, all of the older versions or the past kind of things we were working with, letting them sort of come through in this new version Lossy that we created, so that we had the new, but also the memories. And Andrea used that word a lot within the description of people having memories. And sometimes they were memories of like something that happened 20 minutes ago, choreographed in the work. And other times it was literally a memory from 5 years ago, something that we maybe worked on that never got any further. It got chopped off. We ended that research, but we let all of those things sort of infiltrate those kind of final moments of the work, where we sort of blew open that possibility of really having sort of everything available to us from 5 years ago to the more recent process.
Very cool. We got a couple more hands, and then we'll let everybody enjoy their evening. So Megan is, oh, that's an old hand. Oh, there's Susanna. Susanna, come on in and ask your question, my friend.
Hey, Amy, it's Suzanne, everybody. I've just enjoyed this so much. And Andrea, your description just, oh my Lord, I just loved it. It was so juicy and beautiful. And I loved how you used metaphor. The radio image was just like so, I loved that. It just really gave me a sense of how things were passing through bodies, moving and yet not able to stop in a resting place. I just, wow, loved it. And my question is, of those 30 plus weeks of development, how long were you developing the AD, and how did you, you said you know, had opportunities to test out various language. Who was your person that you know, put ideas out to, or were you in the room with the dancers and choreographers, or did you bring in someone for quality control that wasn't in the system already? Thank you.
Thanks, Susanna. Those are really kind words. It really moves me to hear. The timeline, I'd have to like look at my Google Docs history, all the different chunks of editing. Lisa, do you remember when I actually started coming in?
I feel like you came in for the first time around June 2023, like dropped in to see what we were working on at that time, which was a year before the piece actually premiered. We were working on just a shorter chunk of it at the time. And then I think you started coming in, just dropping by, you know, every couple of weeks or every once a month, depending on what made sense for you. Sort of over that year, maybe from fall 2023 up until the premiere, kind of gearing more concentrated maybe in the months leading up to the
yeah. And I remember it was interesting, like working in, because of the way I work, which has been from video. I've started doing dance video description. Like I find when I was in the studio, I tried maybe some takes of like describing live into a microphone just to sort of see how it would feel. But then once it was these sections were getting more set, I was working with videos of rehearsals so I could run the lines over and over for timing, because timing is such a huge part of dance description. Even though I try to hit a balance of worrying about how much it syncs up, but then also saying what needs to be said, if that's more important than perfect visual alignment of words and looking. And then test audience, we got to do a test. I got to do a test with my dear friend Colin Van Ushlen, who's blind. We did a whisper test at a showing in the winter, I think in the winter of 2023. And I think I was improvising from notes and just seeing his experience with the piece, the content of the piece, the music, being in the room, like, are we on to something here? Is this doable? Can we work it? And his feedback there was like, yes, the music, the dance, the themes for him, even through a pretty rough description, really landed, and he felt like it was valuable work. So early Colin Van Ushlen, and then later Amy, I would send chunks of my recorded writing to Amy for feedback as well. And then my friends who I live with, sometimes they're around. I didn't share much. We had conversation, but I didn't share much actual language with Josh, Lisa, or the artist. But I would ask them for stuff, and then just go off and secretly do my thing. Like, hey, Ruby, what are you thinking? Do you have, if you want, do you want to tell me a little bit about what you're processing here in this moment when you're the last person to kind of reintegrate into the group? Or Kate, what is this section where everyone's kind of floating around? Like, what's that about for you? So I got some information from dancers like that, but I didn't actually, I think I was shy, I don't know, or I didn't want to make them feel weird about their dancing as a dancer to say, wait, I actually didn't share much of that language, except for stuff when it's personal, like identity language, where I want to make sure it like fits on people in a way they feel good. Yeah, thanks for asking.
I remember the first project that you and I worked on, Andrea. I kept asking you about like, what's the story? And like, there's no story. Like, I need a story, right? Like, what's the narrative? You know, what's the metaphor for that? What's the like? Because there's only so many times I can hear leap, jump, twirl before it's like I just want to have a nap because it doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of movements.
I'm so excited when Josh and Lisa started talking about this work, because I was like,
Yeah.
it's definitely contemporary dance, and it definitely has so much emotional resonance and arc that it felt like, I think I'm ready and interested in meeting the challenge of describing all sorts of different kinds of dance, but it felt like really describable because I was feeling like emotional stuff and connecting to it in that way, in a way that's less abstract or whatever. So I was like, okay, I think.
And the world of dance is a really great place for describers, especially dance describers who know dance, dancers who know description and that integration, because you can let the work impact you differently than perhaps somebody who is describing something else, right? Because dance is very subjective. That's really all it is subjective. And so, the way that description is changing, maybe more in Canada and the UK than in the States, sorry, Susanna, but how us Canadians are trying to imprint on our American friends who are doing descriptions because it's so much richer. And I think like Susanna is a part of the Describers Cafe, who's probably seen your work, Andrea, in the Describers Cafe before. But how much richer an experience it is to listen to, even as a sighted person, to listen to, along with the visuals, when you have all of these other textures and it's not just like this, I don't know, plain, almost clinical, technical sounding stuff where you're just like, that's great. What does it mean? What are they telling me? What are they trying to invoke on me? How are they trying to make me feel? And it's not about telling me, it's about my describer saying, this is how I'm feeling. And this is what I want to share with you about my experience while adding in some of the movements. Does that change how you feel? Because you're also sharing us with what the visuals are, so that we can add in our experiences and a little bit of how you're experiencing. It's like having a conversation about dance while we're witnessing it. And I really love that. I love that also when I go to a gallery experience or when I'm experiencing art that's like visual art or gallery art, that kind of thing, because it's like a conversation about art, which is very different than trying to put in description in between lines of dialogue, right? Because you only have so much time to do that. It's about really feeding the description so that we know how to move the plot forward, what's essential to moving the plot forward. So
It was really cool talking to Josh and Lisa a bunch as this work developed, like that their openness to that more
Stuff
conversation
makes me super excited. Yeah.
style, and to give me information, this idea that okay, maybe there's things that aren't totally visually apparent that I'm feeling or they're feeling, and yeah, Lisa maybe called it cheats or like these things that we can add in.
Yep.
Zoom out, and I'm just crediting Josh and Lisa for the support in developing those ideas.
And then finding what their balance is so that you're serving the work and serving the listener.
Yeah, so it's still a dance, and those dancers, I want their work to be upheld because they're really dancing out there, and I don't want them to disappear. But yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
We're also very grateful to Andrea for going through this process, and also Amy for consulting so that what we were making would be something that was useful to people that needed this access tool, as well as kind of pushing the edges of what it could be. Like you said, Amy, really, you come across like as someone who's really like passionate about dance, and that's like the perfect kind of combination. Someone who's an expert in this and also happens to love dance, and we can kind of find our way through this thing that is going to be exciting, hopefully, for everyone.
Yep, I've dedicated a lot of my life's work to creative access, well, to description, but also to creative access, because I recognize the need for both things, to sort of know and understand the basic framework of it, and then to know and understand where you can bend the rules so that you can serve both the work and the listener. Everybody gets what they need. This has been really lovely. I very much enjoy having both of you in the space. You can say hello to Josh. I know he's been in the background. I've heard his voice, but say hello. I would love to maybe have futures in the space at some point if you all are interested in coming back and talking about that work. So I'll just plant that seed now. But let's let you just have the evening off. And with our thanks for bringing this work to VocalEye. I really appreciate you sharing this work with our community.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thanks to VocalEye, and thank you to Andrea, and thanks to everyone for coming and experiencing this with us on your Wednesday night. It's really meaningful for us to be able to, share this.
That's awesome.
It was amazing. Susanna, sorry, the dance too. I thought, I went nuts over the audio description, which is so beautiful, and the dance itself is just stunning. Thanks, Amy, for your always amazing leadership and inspiration.
Thanks, Susanna. I appreciate that. All right, my friends, enjoy your Wednesday evening. We hope to see you back next week, and I hope that Company 605 won't be strangers for long. Enjoy your work.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.